Aloha class. Today we will be talking about legibility in our text. First off, um, when it comes to legibility, it's most important to create we need a more legibility when we have a lot of text. For example, when we maybe have paragraphs or certain areas in our website that we need to cover more content. When it comes to headers and titles, it is obviously still important, but it's more important when it comes to content and having more text in our website. So first off, when it comes to legibility, our mind, when we look at text, we don't look at the letters. We actually recognize it by shapes. So if you look here, there's that we have the certain shapes where for example the E is smaller, it's shorter, the L is taller obviously, and then areas where it comes down below the text and above the text. And so this type of shape is how our mind recognizes and opens or recognizes and sees the text. Next is what makes text legible. Right here it says open spaces and healthy strokes. Basically, if you read right here, this is an example of good text as well as bad text. Open spaces are the spaces in the letters themselves, where you can really tell that there's a lot of space in the O, the P, the E. Also in some of the other letters that we have in here, as well as healthy strokes. Nice, long, healthy, good strokes are another factor that make up very legible text. If you look down here in the bad example, we have less open spaces in the fonts, which makes it a little more difficult to read. It's more condensed in here, as well as the healthy strokes. Right here, the strokes are okay, but however, if you've noticed, maybe if you've seen a scanned copy of a text, a lot of times there's interruptions between the strokes of the text, and that makes it a lot harder for the document to be legible. And so this is an example of a good example and a bad example when it comes to open spaces and healthy strokes. One of the other factors to consider is having a generous x height. The x height is the height of the x or other characters there. If you look here in the Verdana text, the x has actually a higher x height than does Times New Roman, making the text more legible to the reader. It just creates more open spaces than does the Times New Roman. The Times New Roman, because it's smaller, it condenses those open spaces. And so in this case, the Verdana is actually going to be more legible than the Times New Roman. Next point to consider is apertures. Same here with the two text styles. The apertures. What we want is a big, nice, open aperture. The aperture comes right here where there's the opening on the C and the E. The bigger it is and the more space in between right here and for the aperture, the more legible the text becomes. Right here, where it's a little bit more closed off, it makes it a little bit harder to read because it condenses down that X height as well as the open spaces, making it a little bit less legible. Next factor to consider when we're thinking about legible text is ascenders and descenders. Ascenders, marked here in the orange, are the text that stretches above the top of the X height. So for the L, the dot on the I, the B, the top of the L, those are all ascenders, as well as the descenders, as far as the G over here as well, that come below the X height. What we want for the for good x for good ascenders and descenders are ones that are very discernible. We want to make sure that they're coming that if we do have them that they're coming well above and well below the X shape, because if they don't, say if this one was a lot shorter in the B, it would be really hard to discern that this is a B. What it actually helps discern that it's a B because it has this nice ascender right here. And so that's one of the factors that makes text a lot easier to be legible. Last, we'll talk about sans serif and serif. On serif fonts, you'll notice at the end here they have these little ticks. Makes it a little bit fancier looking at the end of each character. Some argue that it is easier to understand because some say that these ticks actually lead your eyes across the text and make it look smoother. But if you think about it, that's a good argument. But with the serif font, it does tend to close the open spaces and close those apertures. So when you look at a sans serif font, is because it doesn't have those ticks. It allows for more open spaces. It allows for the larger x heights as well. And so those factors, and as well as the aperture as well, those factors considered, the sans serif font is actually more legible than the serif font because those three factors, the x height, the aperture, and the open spaces, are actually going to be more important than the ticks that are there on the serif font, making the sans serif more eligible. And so this is how we make text legible. I hope you learned from this video and can use this in your own personal websites in the future.